Hello, wake up, Sean. We're here.
There we go. Got
Hi,
it. There we go.
hey, welcome, Sean Thompson, for joining me today at the Elephant and Castle community. I am Nick from Retribe. It's going to be an awesome one today. I've been looking forward to it all week, Sean. You are a behavior change coach or a
Yep.
coach that produces behavioral change.
Yeah, that's the one.
You're also an ex-ice hockey player too, so I'm super looking forward to talking to a brother who's skated the boards. It's always nice to know that we've got something in common. But thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. No, thank you for having me. I love doing this stuff. So yeah, thank you for having me here.
Good, good. And for the community here, can you just I gave you what you do in terms of behavior change, but can you give us a good 2 to 3 minute kind of introduction to who you are and what you do? I'm just going to check the
Yeah,
links while you do it.
yeah, sure. So my background has always been ice hockey. And one of the biggest turning points in my career was when I actually realized I needed a personal trainer. I needed somebody to help me. Um, and from that, I realized actually this is something I could do. It was actually probably more for selfish reasons to start off with, that it was going to help my game.
Mhm.
And it was going to fit in with my semi-professional career, which it was at that time. I wasn't playing pro; it was semi-pro. Um, and it's taken me on this incredible journey of self-development, which actually only kind of started happening probably about 3 or 4 years ago, even though I've been PTing for 12. Um, and I think lockdown had a huge part to do that with that. It forced my hand to adapt and do something that I actually wanted to do. I wanted to coach. We spoke last week, and I said one thing I wanted to do before I finished playing ice hockey was to coach, and it never happened. It never happened for a few reasons. But what I realize now with what I do is I am able to coach. And I do work with some hockey players. I've actually have another interesting call after this one with a prospect in Germany that I could be helping. So it's taken me along this route of behavior change, because that's what people need. People don't need another hit class. People don't need to be told that they shouldn't eat junk food, because they know that. What they need is a deeper understanding of why they do what they do. Um, and that's what I help people achieve, because I had a call the other day, and this guy said to me, he said, "We're only 3 weeks in and you've changed my life." And he said, "If it's this easy, I can't believe that it's true." And I said, "No, it's not easy. It's simple. We're simplifying it." Because the industry I'm in, it's very complicated. You've got a lot of people looking for a quick sale,
Mm.
and they don't care. They don't care who you are. They don't care who I am. They don't care if you're struggling, as long as you pay the money. And in a way, I'm here to break that mold, and
Yeah.
disrupt the industry in a way.
That's absolutely beautiful. I love it because, I truly do believe like there's so much that we can talk about with regards to coaching. What is a coach? The work that we need to do on self to move, out of these things. Like you say, I think everybody could do with having some kind of guide in their life, some mentor, because ultimately you need somebody who can mirror you, but also enable you to find out the truth in yourself and do. I imagine this like because it can be, even that word coach is kind of almost like veneer or top level, but there's so
Mhm.
much more deeper work that I suppose it gets targeted for psychotherapists and psychologists, etc. But I found that my deep work happened with a man who was not a doctor, who's not a psychologist, he was not trained in any other way other than life experience.
Mhm.
And it is in his life experience that I recognized frailties in my life. And like you say, it's this idea of evolving and changing, and how we as individuals think, oh, I don't need to change. I'm good. My mortgage is getting paid. My kids are going to school. I've got 2 cars in the garage. I'm good. But really, there's so much more to that, isn't there, Sean? To actually being like feeling some joy and fulfillment and happiness in our lives that are not based around materialistic gains and needs and wants.
Yeah.
So I suppose my first question is an idea around is what is a coach? Because I think that today, I mean, I even posted something today about a kind of coaching that I've found very harmful in my life. But I suppose what's the idea of a coach mean to you today?
Yeah, I caught that video, and the power over coaching. And you know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's because there is, a number of coaches out there that all do things differently. I think one of the biggest skills that you can have as a coach is empathy, is understanding from another person's point of view and challenges. We're not all built the same. We weren't grown up with the same parents, the same teachers, the same social groups. So just because you have a belief, it doesn't mean that the other person's belief is wrong. It's just that they've grown up or lived in a different way, and you have to kind of move yourself out with what works for you. A big eye opener at the start of lockdown, I was fantastic. I was bunnies and rainbows, man, because everything was working well for me. But that didn't mean that my perception of it going well meant that somebody else struggling was, well, that's your fault. It was, just because everything was in line for me, didn't mean it was aligned for somebody else. So, a big thing, especially if we talk hockey, man management, person management is overlooked a lot, especially over in this country, I believe. And it's a lot of X's and O's for anybody, tactics. It's very much, you've got a lot of coaches who are very skilled, but they don't know how to manage the player, whereas everybody's different. Some people need a hug. Some people might need shouting at. Some people might need an extra 5-10 minutes of your time. And I think that's one of the biggest skills as a coach is coaching the individual.
I agree. I think that there are archetypes of people. I think that there are certain behavioral traits that I've noticed in people that kind of start to follow patterns. You do get the jokers, you get the very serious people, you get the kind of carers, you get the very emotional types. All individuals have a certain archetype to them. I think we're kind of predestined to it just through our evolution to fulfill certain roles. Because I think that a lot of people might say that someone who is over emotional, it's a sign of weakness, because they just might say that. But really, it's an ability to be able to feel, different emotions, and emotions are there to teach us stuff. So it's maybe being in a place to be able to learn more, but also be able to feel others, like being empathetic towards others. So how do you kind of start to, do you know what? I want to forget that. I want to go like what was Sean like before hockey? Like, how did you, because I'm trying to fulfill a role of trying to help people. And it's really something that I find it's my purpose in life, is try to help people. How did you end up, getting to where you are? Like, where did it all start? Where did you grow up? And you said that everybody's different, but I'm interested to know how you were molded, in that kind of the mold to you to be able to be of service today.
I guess it is my upbringing, right? Hockey over here is not massive. The team I played for, there was different reasons to work harder. We didn't get much ice time, so if I was a top player, I could play up an age group, which means I could train more and I could play more with older and better players for progress. That was the incentive, the drive, and then you're the young guy trying to prove a point. So always trying to push yourself to that next level. And ultimately, I guess it's my parenting. When playing for the club, I grew up in Slough. So for the club, I was the big fish in the pond. If I didn't play well, we would lose, most of the time. And I guess that, and bringing other people in and making them feel welcome, and then kind of using them to help the team, especially if players are moving clubs. A lot of players would move clubs quite often because of bullying.
Really?
Yeah, quite often in juniors, it wasn't that people would move because they want to win. It was, they were being bullied, so they moved. My parents would always encourage me to, and my brother as well, to encourage to go and make them feel welcome. Go and talk to them straight away first session. I always remember that quite vividly, and from that, created some incredible relationships. Even if I hadn't seen those guys for 15 years, it would probably be exactly the same if I met up with them now.
Your parents sound very encouraging. What was their encouragement like to you? Like, how did they say, "Hey, Sean, let's go to the rink," or, do your homework? How did they guide you in your early youth?
There was probably no issues getting us to the rink. It was more so probably the other way. Look, hey, if you don't do your homework, you're not going to the rink. I do remember that quite a few times. Academically, I was okay. I had to do more. My parents always pushed me in academically. I had to get tutors and extra classes. As much as I hated it, I understand why they did it now. But their parenting style was very much, in a way, learn your lessons. We were never dragged to the rink. We were never dragged to do anything we didn't want to do. And they had their way about it. They had their way of doing it. Sometimes it worked really well, and other times, when I was a bit older and drinking and partying was a thing, and take into account I played pro at 16. So, going out and partying with my mates had a huge conflict on my progression off the ice. And they let me make those decisions. And whereas they affected me, I believe, in hockey, I do believe, I have hockey regrets, but I don't have any regrets from what happened in hockey in terms of where I am now. So, they had this unique style. They were involved. My dad was coach of most of my teams, all of my brother's teams, and most of mine. My mum managed. So we grew up in an ice rink. That was life. Yeah, that was life. And it gave a huge amount to us. It took us off the streets. When you're training silly o'clock at night on a Friday night and playing games Saturday, you couldn't do anything. It kind of guided us in that sense. So yeah, it's a lot to thank for that world, and a huge amount of lessons learned as well.
I like the way you said that your parents let you learn by doing, and is that something that, so give I don't know, you don't have to give examples, but is that something that you've kind of is now inherent in your coaching style? Because, like a lot of people say, we lost, or we're losing, or we failed at that. And I think it's just a quick reframe is that, did you really, or did you just learn a lot, because, and is that something now that you try to, because that's what I do. It's not a loss, it's a learning experience. So that, and I find it now, I know we're both, like, I'm a stepfather, and I know you're a dad. You have 2 boys, right?
Yeah.
And I've got three boys that, I'm stepdad recently in their lives. And I Sean, it was crazy. I came into this family thinking if I told them to do something, they would do it. Because I was like the hockey player and they loved hockey. Yeah. And I thought they would look up to me and I'd be like, hey, go clean your room. And they'd be like, who are you? What do you, but yeah. And it was only when they saw me cleaning my room, that they started to kind of go, oh, hey, okay. So that's what making a bed is like. So it was only kind of seeing and experiencing things that they actually started to learn. So what's that experience like for you? And how did your, like I say, I suppose, encourage your parents your parents encouraged you to embrace your mistakes. And that's probably helped you become a very effective coach today.
Yeah, it's led to it, right? I still remember it. We were in the car. We were going past Windsor on the M4. And I remember them bringing up the topic of me going out with my friends partying. I think I was probably 18, 19. And I still remember the conversation, and I remember snapping back at them. Oh, I'm only doing this. I'm not doing it every night. It's 1-2 nights a week. And I remember, I think it was my mum that said to my dad, okay, that's it. Conversation was over. It was never brought up again. So in terms of coaching style, yes, it's not a good idea to tell people what to do, because they don't learn anything. I saw that early days of my PT career is I got some really, really good results, but a lot of them didn't sustain because I was only able to tell them what to do, because I didn't necessarily understand what I know now with the mindset and habits and links to childhood behavior. Whereas my clients now, what I work with is I will allow them to think for themselves in the way that I kind of approach the coaching, but they will also know that I'm right there with them if they are stuck, if they are failing, because I want to see them succeed. So I will never tell them what to do. I don't do diet plans. I don't tell them what to do. It's all advice around their lifestyle as an individual and their challenges. And I just get them to raise their awareness, start asking more questions. They say, he who asks questions cannot avoid the answers. And we need to start asking more questions. But what I find a lot as adults, and what I've learned along the way, is how much of our adult behaviors is created from our childhood.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. A lot of us just think our childhood is in the past. And, it's what I speak about all the time, is that my state, even as a 49-year-old man, like I'm 52 this month, but as a 49-year-old man, still being crippled by fear, and even at that time of like being sober from all mind altering substances for 4 years, you'd think I'd have some real clarity in my life, but I still remember feeling like very unworthy and having very low self-esteem, stemming from just being a scared kid. And it wasn't like anything. It was, like I did have a father who was very strict and he could be quite scary. And I can trace it right back to, that fear of anything, fear of not being accepted, fear of failure, like fear of trying something and not getting it right and have it being chastised, So it was like, oh, if I'm going to try and I'm not going to get it right and I'm going to get a reaction like that, well, I'm not even going to bother trying, and that was me going through school. As I just was like, I'm not going to try. I would never apply myself because I was so scared of what a teacher would say to me. You're stupid, you can't read, which are things that happened to me. And you then go through your whole life, 49 years where you go like, I'm just a piece of, I won't swear because this is a Facebook Live with the Elephant Cast. Maybe on my podcast I'll swear, but not feeling very good about myself. And so, what are the things that you see with your clients when, like, how far I don't want to say you can regress with them because we're not psychologists or anything like that, but or Jungians or Freudians or anything like that. But how far back can you go to their childhood behaviors and actually enable them to see? Because I think that's the big thing, is being vulnerable enough to go, hey, do you know what? Maybe what happened to me back when I was 8 has affected me today. I didn't realize it. So what's that journey that you take people like to go to, I suppose, to go back to childhood and ask and uncover and discover some things? And yeah, I'm interested to know that journey that you take your clients through.
Yeah, it's amazing when you give people a place to talk. So for me, asking questions is priceless. It's amazing when you give people a place to talk, how open they come very, very quickly. I've what I call strategy calls or first calls where we haven't even signed up to start. It's amazing the information people are willing to give you with the right questions. And once somebody has that kind of that know, like, and trust, they will open up, especially as they know a huge part of my job is I have no position and no place to tell anybody anything that they tell me. Obviously, for privacy reasons. So it's amazing what you can find out quite quickly without too much digging. But without it, it will be very difficult to get results. I always say dig to the root cause, challenge everything. So people say, I want to lose weight. Okay, what's the reason you want to lose weight? I'll be happier. Okay, well, how will that benefit your life? How will that change your life? And get them to start thinking more, because as amazing as this is, it's ultimately very lazy. We still have what we call a mammal brain. It still behaves like our ancestors did in the caves many, many years ago. And once you can see that connection, then you can start reframing and rewiring. So your basic behaviors, I don't know, like brushing your teeth, it's so strong. It's so effortless and so strong. Whereas if you go to do something brand new, like working out, if you don't work out, there's nothing there. There's nothing there to work with. And that's why it's so difficult, because if you don't give it a purpose, if you don't give it a deeper meaning and a deeper reason, your brain just deletes and moves on.
Yeah.
So when you go back to that root cause, desserts after dinner. Hey, if you finish your dinner, you get dessert. Okay, great. I get to eat more calories and potentially be overweight. Brilliant. But we don't question that as an adult. We just go, well, it's dinner. I now want something sweet. Whereas actually you could really trace that back to, well, this is how my parents encouraged me to finish dinner, so I'd grow up and be big and strong. But now I'm potentially big and not very strong at all. And then it's then going, okay, well, that's the situation. how do we then now fix you not needing that sweet thing after dinner, or including it without, without then over consuming?
Mm. That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm glad that you talked about kind of our evolution, because there are so many. That's the other thing. Like, we think about how we're raised, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, how we are raised, how we are taught to be raised, how certain, white men in white coats said, get the kid off of the mom's milk and get them into formula and get them into a crate and put them in a box, and let them go to sleep by themselves because it's healthy for the children. And we're forgetting the fact that we never were evolved like that. We were always raised with a lot of people around us, and the child was the center of everything, and they were nourished and loved by so many people. And now we're kind of just taught to grow up so fast in these isolated environments. So it's not only we're fighting I suppose our base instinct, and so on in terms of survival, I guess it's that root of survival. And I can see now, like, I'm glad that you're talking about food, and I know you specialize in that relationship with food, because it's something that I find is being if I do get stressed nowadays, like, it used to be a drink for me, but now if I do get stressed, I will, and I have trained myself now, it will be dark chocolate or something like that, but it will be this thing of, like, it used to be donuts, when I lived in Soho,
Yeah.
Sean. Yeah, I lived next to a donut time, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna go for a donut as a reward for a walk during the day, and they'd be selling them off at the end of the night, and I'd end up getting 2 for 1s or something like that, and I say I'll eat one tomorrow, but devouring them both. And
Yeah.
it was to fill a hole. There's no question about it. There was some loneliness, there was some fear, there was some anxiety about life, coming out of COVID and business, and food was definitely something that I used to fill a hole. It's ironic that I was using donuts, something with a hole, to fill
Yeah.
a hole. So, when someone comes to you, how do they talk about their relationship with food? And then how do you try to change the mindset around that?
Yeah, it's coping mechanisms, and I guess habit forming, right? And we often get it from somewhere. Again, childhood. A kid pushed you over in the park, you cried. Somebody came over and gave you a hug, and you felt better. Guess what? You now see hugs as a feel-good factor, to feeling sad. Or you got pushed over and you came over and somebody gave you a chocolate bar. You now relate that moment to sadness, to getting happy, to a chocolate bar. So a lot of those habits are formed way before you may even realize. But a huge element of it is food does make us happy, especially certain types of foods. It triggers off chemicals in your brain. The problem is, it's kind of almost ironic that we're unhappy for whatever reason, stress, emotion, etc. We go for the quick fix of happiness, which makes us quite often gain weight. Like, one donut is okay. 2, we're like, okay, why are we having 2?
Yeah.
Then we have that vicious cycle of being unhappy because we're gaining weight quite often. And 2, it doesn't actually solve the problem. It doesn't solve it. It masks it. It's the plaster over the burst pipe.
Yeah.
So what I would look at is okay, so what is the reason we're doing this? And one of the strategies I find really, really powerful is, hey, you can have the donut. That's absolutely fine. It's a donut. Okay, it's a donut. You just got to answer a few questions first. How am I feeling? What's the reason I'm having this? What time is it? Just a few obvious questions just to raise your awareness on what it is. So quite often when somebody says to me, I've had 2, my first instinct would be, okay, we're maybe underfueled here. Your brain's saying, hey, what if we never eat again? You should probably have that second donut just in case that's the last donut you ever eat, because this is a survival mechanism. All it's thinking about is survival. Reproducing, eating, and social threats. And even if you could classify as an introvert, we have this instinct that we need to be part of something, part of a community, to survive. Because if we don't and we get exiled from the tribe, we'll get eaten by a lion. But there's no lions around anymore. not in the wild, not by us anyway. But But yeah, that's how I would kind of look into it. Is we often see the donut as the reward, but actually the donut is the routine.
Yeah.
So once we understand what we're actually looking for, which is the reward, de-stressing, making ourselves happy, giving ourselves energy, once you find that, you can correct the routine and then start to form a new habit that aligns with your true purpose.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. It's making my heart warm as the way you're describing this, because it's so aligned with what I'm trying to, do in my own life and in the people who I care about and the people that are in my business. Is exactly what you say. We have all of these ancient needs, these ancestral things that are interwoven in our body. We don't honor them. We don't honor where we came from. We just think of ourselves in this world with this thing. We think this makes us the smartest species that's ever been here, when it's just not true. We're probably more isolated and lonely, even though we live in these mega cities of today of millions and millions of people. I've never known so many people to be so lonely. And I think right at this core, I love what you say. It's this core to belong. Like that's the one thing. Like, because without the belonging, we wouldn't be able to get the hunt and the gathering of survival. Without connection and community, we wouldn't be able to build the shelters and fend off the I say saber-tooth tigers when I talk.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you use that language, Sean, because it is honoring, where we come from. Is it something that you have a hard time explaining to clients, and them just going, oh no, we live in 2023 and this is the best time ever and we're more advanced and smarter and technology is making us better, so we as individuals should have more, and I'm not successful because I don't have this a nice car as the guy who I'm sitting next to on my sales team? Do they kind of shun our evolution to just focus on the materialism of and capitalism of today's world?
I haven't come across any conflict. A lot of people, when they come to me, are quite open-minded, because this isn't kind of just like a PT session. They are coming in to invest in mindset, habits, lifestyle, and a different way of thinking. And everything, what I've learned as well, one of the most important things of coaching is layman's terms. It's you got to talk to a 5-year-old and explain it in its most basic form. So we are huge visualizers. Okay. When you close your eyes and you think of a bed, you don't close your eyes and see the words BED. You picture your bed with pillows on it and being in it and feeling comfortable and sleepy. So visualization is really handy, where, for example, when we're talking about threats, I would kind of use the terminology that you'd come out the cave, hadn't realized there's a lion there, but there is. You've got to run, and the first thing you get to is a tree. You climb up the tree and you survive. Now you see trees as a survival. So anytime you now leave the cave, you will be searching for trees. And it's the same way we behave now, but in a lot less threatening way. But we will leave the house and we will search for food. We will search for a mate. We will search for somebody to talk to, depending on what was an unfulfilled need. So where most people in today's world, we're too busy, so we don't eat, don't skip breakfast. We eat quick carbs that leave us crashing in energy. So we're searching for food all the time. So what I often remind my clients is we could survive 70 plus days without food, even if water is present. So we'll be all right for a few hours. Don't let this trick you. We'll be okay. Like, I'm not telling you to starve yourself, but you'll survive. And it's just reminding people, look, it is technology is way over here and our brain's still over here. As fantastic as it is, it's still over here. And it's just getting them to recognize the signals and being aware enough and adult enough to make a grown-up decision, not an impulse decision.
I think in many ways, I do. In all ways, I love the fact that we need to honor where we came from, but also like this idea of modern day society's really been molded, post World War II. And you could say definitely over the last, 30 or 40 years, we've been molded into, these silos of individualism that are all built upon the collection of stuff to make us feel, part of or wanted or successful. So I'd like to lean towards these words of we need to unlearn a lot of stuff. We need to unlearn, for instance, the things that I was taught as a kid, and maybe you were taught as a kid, of what it's like to be a real man. I really don't even like using those terms, real man, because my aim is to become a comprehensive man, a full and complete person. But the terms real men, we were used in these kind of unbalanced masculine ways, which were real men don't cry, real men sort out all their own problems, real men don't have naps in the afternoon, real men don't show weakness, real men show power over their family because they need to be seen as the leader. A lot of things that built upon that built, I suppose, a perfect storm of setting men up for failure, because these are like unobtainable goals or ideals to live up to. So I tend to, every day, I want to try to unlearn some of these things. Is it something that you have to find with some clients, maybe trying to, before you learn, you need to unlearn? I suppose it's unlearning bad habits or unlearning thoughts and ideas and ideologies that you were brought up with. Do you find that most people need to do some kind of unlearning to get to a state of learning new and more flourishing ways to live?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people come to me over the years and they kind of like, look, I've got a PT now, I'm going to get results. Some people literally jump in and do just that because they don't have much to unlearn. They may have just started bad habits because they've started a new job. I've had a number of clients who have had to really trust the process because they've seen no physical change for a couple of months, few months, because they had so much to do here first. But once that's done and you've done the hard work there, it's the rest is simple. The rest is easy. But unlearning, it's kind of, rather than, I guess, unlearning, it's not using that mechanism anymore, because like I said, we said earlier, the connections in the brain on those habits are so strong. It's so easy to go to. This is, like I said, this is an energy saver, so it doesn't want to have to do anything that it doesn't want to do. So it's kind of to eliminate the use of it, to make it weaker, like a muscle. If you don't use it, it gets weaker. Whereas if you use another muscle, you build another connection and you put the reps in, that's the most important part. Then that will get strong enough that this just becomes a whisper. It's never going to go anywhere. It's not going to completely be deleted, but it will be a whisper that you don't need to act upon. And I guess it's kind of like how your story goes. That connection of your coping mechanism was so strong, yet when the purpose was big enough and the time was right for you, you were able to put the reps in with something else that then made that a whisper, and this too strong that, and the power of it as well, the happiness that you gain from that control. Your brain wants that. Okay, let's move this way now. That's not good enough anymore. This is what I want.
Yeah, I love that. As initially a trained PT, your job was to, I suppose, help people just with their physical appearance, wants, needs, health, overall physical health. And now you're evolving into being able to do, I imagine, some shadow work with people so that they can unlearn a lot of this stuff of what's going on in here. You point to your brain. So like we always think of like the physical thing, our skeletal muscles is something that we need to that is separate to this. So, and then also soul, like goes, so you have mind, body, and spirit, I guess, and the wholeness of it all. In the initial stages as a PT, were you just focused on like the skeletal muscles, and how have you evolved into kind of thinking of it as being holistic and a whole approach to being human?
Yeah, 100%. A big issue for me was I was very 50-50 with the PT and hockey. I was very passionate about my hockey, even at semi-pro level. I thought I trained and ate like a pro. I didn't. I know that now for many reasons, but I thought I was. I wanted to be the best I could possibly be. So it was very 50-50. I would train somebody, I'd say see you later, and then I'd see them next session. Because after that, I needed to go and train myself, or I had to go training. And it was only after I finished playing whereas, and I knew I was 50-50. I knew I wasn't all in. What the saying is, to do more than one is to do none. So that's potentially why I didn't reach the pinnacle in hockey, and that's why I was so far behind potentially in PT. But when I finished, one tweet changed my life. One tweet. And all it was, hey, I'm looking for a business podcast to listen to, because I know I need to focus on my business now. I can go all in. And somebody came back with this podcast and this episode, and that podcast led from the tweet completely changed my life.
Which podcast? Don't say Tim Ferriss or something like that, is it?
No. It's a guy called Andy Frisella, the MF CEO project. I won't say out live what MF stands for. You can use your imagination. But the whole concept, I thought I was going to be listening to a business podcast where they would say, go and create this website, go and do this. But it wasn't. It was all about being the CEO of your life. Yeah. Okay. And that was an eye-opener. You're looking at somebody who despised reading. My whole family said, oh, every time you walk past a bookshop, you pass out. And I went from the pass out person to realizing that books are fantastic, podcasts are fantastic, and that everything is on me. Yes, there are external factors, but that's my choice how I take it. And I look back now at the PT that I was, and I had to do that stuff. I had to do that to be where I am now. So, there's no regrets there. Would I love to have some of those clients back now? Yeah, 100%. I'd love to see them right now. And not only apologize for my young PT behavior and lack of knowledge, but this is what I could do for you now. So yeah, you have to go through everything to put you in the position you are now. You could see it as regrets and be upset about it, or you could just go, you know what, it's never going to happen again. I'm not going to let that happen again, and I'm going to grow with this and continue to learn skills and understand. We know more than ever about the human brain now, but we don't know everything.
No.
We don't know everything.
We certainly don't, and it's it's just a continue. I love not knowing everything, and I love the fact that you talk about how you've evolved, because I think anybody who embarks on any kind of new career path or a career path of kind of teaching or guiding, the first few years are, you've got to go through these things, and I mean, I consider myself a very good mentor in recovery. I happen to, that is something that I would say I'm a specialist in, is helping people in recovery. It's a non-paid position. It's something that I just give of my own time, but I really feel like doing that has enabled me to build some self-esteem in my life to get me to where I am today. But it took a couple of years of not failing. You're out there and you're giving your time to somebody. There's no financial exchange. So it's really just me giving my time to somebody. And I learned so much about how to become a good teacher. And I think that, and so like I say, anybody who's embarking on this, it takes time. You can't expect yourself to be great right off the top, and you evolve into the role. And I'm interested now to know where you are. Oh, also, do you know where the word mentor comes from? It's a really cool story. I heard this on a podcast, and I tried to look up I think it's the history of the word epistemology. Anyway, but a mentor was an old sailor, and the old sailor that was cut with scars, maybe a patch over his eye, missing a limb or a couple of fingers. And he would teach the young sailors, don't grab onto that rope, duck there, don't do that. You're going to lose an eye, or, and it was by someone who's been through some stuff. So we are running out of time already, Sean, and this stuff flies by. But at the beginning of this, you indicated that you wanted to be, a disruptor. You wanted to kind of, I suppose, challenge the coaching industry and that whole thing of mentoring. And how do you want to do that? Like, what are the things that you want to try to guide people through that really elevates you in the coaching world?
It's going to be an extremely difficult job. Extremely difficult because of the beliefs that people have. We've grown up on scales. How much do you weigh? You're overweight, you're underweight. If you do this workout, you can lose weight extra fast, rapid fire. It's very difficult because the marketers, which is one thing that we're up against, that understand human psychology incredibly well. They want money, and they will not necessarily be ethical to do it. My approach is to put out what I believe, and I guess it kind of goes with the name of the talk, tribe, is to create my tribe that has the same beliefs that me, that trusts it. And then they'll also then start, there you go. And then they'll also start telling their stories. I've had messages this week. A client said, the book that you got me for Christmas, I've given it to somebody. I've advised this person. My client the other night, he was doing a talk on motivation with his team yesterday. And he said, I'm going to talk about excuses, which is the live you did the other day. If I put that information out there, if I really truly believe this works, and I know it does, I just need more people to believe it. And that's not going to be easy, because if I don't get the time to talk to somebody and they don't want to listen, then they'll be stuck in their ways. But if I put out my content, my videos, I give incredible value to my clients and get them the results that they came to me for, word will spread. And it already is. There are other people that are calling themselves behavior change coaches as well, which is really interesting, because that wasn't really around a year ago. So there are other people in my boat looking to do the same thing. And that community will grow. Will it ever be as big? No, I don't believe it will ever be as big. People still want easy. They want what's sexy, fast, quick. And Amazon Prime, I think, has ruined that for everybody. But
it really had, yeah.
But one thing, if anybody does want to fight kind of like the status quo, there is one fantastic book that does give you a way to think about it. And it's called Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, fantastic human behavior psychologist. But basically, he has done a book that's kind of like, look, the marketers wanted me to write this, so I have. This is how you protect yourself from it. Because once you understand why people are doing stuff and how they're approaching it, your awareness is raised to make, again, more grown-up decisions. So it's a kind of a fantastic defense mechanism book against salesmen, marketers, things like that. So they think they're being clever. Actually, exactly what they're doing.
I know it is going to be tough in the beginning. It is tough to try to say, hey, what we've forgotten. Like, I use the phrase forgetting to remember. And it's not like forgetting to remember something. It is forgetting all of the stuff that we are bombarded with day in and day out, Instagram this and Facebook that and tweet that, and all the TV commercials, and even Netflix thinking about doing commercials now too. But everything, we are just commodity. If it's for free, we're the commodity. Otherwise, we're paying for it. And it is, and we've forgotten. So this is the thing, we've forgotten what we really are. So my whole thing is like forgetting all of that stuff to remember my humanness. If we stripped everything back, right? Everyone's just, everyone's just a human. We took all the money, we took everything. We're just humans on this planet, 8 billion of us. And we needed to survive. We would have to survive by contributing, by going out and being a hunter or a gatherer, childbearer, a wet nurse, or a shaman, or a doctor, or a guard. You would have a role, otherwise we would perish. But now we have forgotten all of our humanness of giving, of belonging, of purpose, to be these silos of individuals. So I know it is going to be hard, because we're saying things that a lot of people are going to be like, you guys are starting to sound woke, little lifty. Sean, do you hug trees? Nick, I know you do. So I bet you guys have yogurt and granola and flip flops, and So I think, and that's the danger, that people go, oh, this is just kind of woke ideology, and it's just nonsense. But I think there is an awakening happening, because I'm a 50-year-old white man who's lived a life of privilege, who's made a lot of mistakes. I could go into the corporate world or the broadcasting world, but I've felt this want and need to help people just find community. And I think that really at the base of it, finding community to then hold each other accountable, to then see people like yourself, having groups of people come see you in small tribes rather than as individuals, because they're wanting to do something together and that they hold each other accountable. I think it's happening, you know. I think maybe you're saying it's going to be hard because it's a fear thing, but I think it's happening for you. I think that you are going to be astounded what your life is going to be like in the next, you know, 1 and 3 and 5 years, because you're trying to help people find connection. And I think at that core, Sean, you cannot go wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got brought up on a thick skin, and you know, I have, there's definitely a purpose and a passion here, because I don't see this as work.
Mm-mm.
You know, I have to pay bills. Money's fantastic. I love money. You can give me as much as you like. But I love what I do. It's not hard for me to work for myself and actually work. It's not hard. I find it hard to step away from it. You know, and I've seen it. I've seen the development. I've seen the change over the past 3-4 years since I've finished playing hockey. And I'm definitely on that team of little wins and put in the work, and it will happen. It's just, it's not if, it's when. And you know, and what drives me is I just need to help one person. You know, if one person has took one little detail from today, I've done what I need to do. And it doesn't exhaust my energy putting in hours of work to get one wow moment. It doesn't exhaust me, because a lot of it is in a way a little bit selfish as well, because I am on my own journey as well, my own self-development and my own learning. So everything that I'm doing is pushing myself forward, and anybody that wants to come with me is welcome. You know, I will take anybody with me, and guide them along the way. So yeah, it's like you said, it's going to disrupt it, most definitely. We're fighting against what's easy, against what's right, I suppose.
Yeah. Beautiful. And it doesn't have to be a fight. It can just be, you know, it can be
That's
what
my
it
hockey
is.
talk. That's the
Yeah,
hockey
yeah,
talk coming up.
yeah. Sean, it's been absolutely amazing having you on, buddy. I really appreciate it. And you know, I know we're going to be able to collaborate and work together in the future. So you know, how can people get in touch with you? You can also just ping the links into the Facebook feed, so you don't have to give out phone numbers or email addresses if you don't want to. But yeah, how do people get in touch with you, on socials and stuff?
I'm everywhere. I'm absolutely everywhere. So you know, on Instagram and Facebook, it's the Behaviour Change Coach. Like to be nice and specific. I think it's the same on YouTube as well. So I tried to keep all of the topics the same. But anybody that's on LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active at the moment. I'm really working on that platform this year. So it's just, you know, again, my name, Sean Thompson. So anything like that, I'm happy to pop the links and you know, enjoy having conversations. So if somebody wants to chat, the DMs are open.
Beautiful. And also ping me the link to that book that you recommended too. I'll stick
Yes.
that in. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Robert Cialdini, fantastic. He's yeah.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
Sean. Thank you so much for joining me today, brother. I really, really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And yeah, thanks everybody at the Elephant and Castle community for joining us today. Get in touch with Sean if you need to chat, and we'll see you next week again for another Retribe Facebook Live. See you then. Bye.